And happy Monday morning to all of you here in a part of our ACSA family. Welcome to the 2021 State ACSA Vice President Town Hall. In just a couple of moments, we'll introduce you to the three candidates for the State Vice President position. This is a very important position. It has a direct line to the ACSA presidency. If you have questions, you can go ahead and drop those into our chat, and time permitting, we'll get to them. Just want to give you an idea of how today's town hall will work. Now, we have three questions for each of the candidates, and each candidate will be alternating as to who will be the first to respond to that question. We will go in alphabetical order. The candidates will have a maximum of 2 minutes to respond. We do have a fourth question, as well as any questions that come onto the chat, and time permitting, we will go ahead and answer those questions. Our candidates will also have the opportunity for closing statements at the end of the broadcast, a maximum of 2 minutes, and we will close out our broadcast, our town hall, by 11 o'clock. Let me go ahead and introduce you to the candidates. We'll do this in alphabetical order as well. Parvin Ahmadi is the superintendent from Castro Valley Unified School District. Grant Bennett is the superintendent from Perris Unified School District. And Mary McNeil, the superintendent from Needles Unified School District. For our three candidates, thank you very, very much for joining us today and for being part of this. We're so lucky to have you. Let me go ahead and get to this first question. And Parvin, you will be the first to respond, followed by Grant, and then Mary. Our first question, post-pandemic, what do you see are the key issues in service for students, and how do you think that ACSA can be involved in supporting those students? Parvin, you have the first 2 minutes. We'll go ahead and get it started.
Yeah, thank you. In order to accelerate learning, we have to appropriately assess to identify gaps as well as where students have excelled. All students, I believe, we all know that they've all suffered through this pandemic, but the existing inequities impacted our students who lack resources exponentially, such as our students of color, English learners, those in economically disadvantaged situations, as well as our students with special needs. So it is really important to have robust multi-systems of support in place to address academic and social emotional needs of our students. And I believe it's really important to use the extended learning opportunity to add services with clear outcomes identified and cycles of inquiry. It is important to focus on essential standards and skills and think out of the box when it comes to remediation and intervention, using lessons that we've learned, integration of technology where it's appropriate. Also, I believe that it's really important to take a good look at our grading system to ensure that we are not grading privilege versus what students know and are able to do. And obviously, PD for staff is critical. As far as ACSA, I believe that what has really occurred the last year has highlighted the impact of ACSA as an organization, helping to communicate the importance of timely decisions, clarity around what comes down, not changing directions as much as possible, advocating for ongoing funding, as well as all of the things that ACSA has done to support all of us in the field with weekly updates, asking us to tell our stories, keeping students at the forefront of every decision and every conversation, equity, and being voice for public education. So I think what ACSA has done this past year, it's been critical and instrumental in what we've been able to do.
Thank you, Parvin, so much. Grant, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Thank you, Naj. With all what's gone on in the last year with the pandemic and just devastating for kids and for staff also, I don't think we'll ever go back to a full traditional like we had before this pandemic started. But I think we need to really use the good things that distance learning has brought to us. And I think that's where ACSA could come in. ACSA with the virtual academies this past year were very successful, and looking at going forward using some of those same tools to help our administrators through professional development. ACSA, I believe, has the best professional development for any organization. And I think looking at where we have the kids with the learning loss and trying to get them college and career ready is a huge part of what we're doing. Social emotional learning for our students is a real focus, and our administrators need to be the leaders there. And where are they going to find out how to do this? And that's through ACSA, I believe. ACSA can help us gain our parental support by showing what we're doing in our schools for our students. And as the students continue to grow and with their academics, it's going to be more important to reach out and touch their lives forever. As we work forward through the pandemic, schools are going to be opening and teachers are going to need that support from our administrators also. And I think that ACSA has put together a great program for that, and I look forward to working with them to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Mary, good morning. Your 2 minutes to respond.
Thank you, Naj. Good morning. Our most pressing need to serve California's students within a 21st century educational system starts with the issue of vision. We should not be going back or returning to what was, but instead forging ahead with recognition that we just experienced a societal transformation that will forever change our educational systems and the work that we do with equity, curriculum, attendance, parent and community input, technology, and social emotional learning, to name a few. I believe the past 13 months, as difficult as they've been, will not be as difficult as the changes required to address these issues from the perspective that our students and our families truly need in order to achieve in this 21st century and to accelerate learning on an individualized basis. ACSA advocacy is more necessary than ever to ensure that those who govern understand these needs. ACSA collaboration and mentoring is essential in the support that our leaders need to forge ahead. And ACSA professional development will serve and develop our school leaders to best serve our California students in these very exciting and complex times. Thank you.
We will move to question 2. Grant will be the first one to respond for 2 minutes, followed by Mary for her 2-minute response, and then Parvin. Question number 2 is, let's discuss equity, because the pandemic has created new or exacerbated existing equity issues. What are some ways ACSA can be a leader in confronting some of these equity issues that are at the forefront in California public education? Grant, your 2-minute response.
Thank you, Naj. Well, equity touches so many different parts of education. Are we looking at staffing our schools with people that mirror the population that we serve? Are we having equity in funding and how we're receiving our monies? Our assessments, are they equitable for all students and from all different areas? And those are some big questions. But really, what I want to talk about as far as equity was having to do with connectivity. My district, we gave every student a Chromebook, and we've been doing that for 7-8 years. And that was the equality part of it. And it wasn't until this year that we found out that not all the students had the connectivity that they needed to be successful on online learning. The students previously would go to McDonald's and Starbucks and the library and use their internet, but they couldn't do that when the pandemic set in. So we thought we were doing great things. We reached out and we gave those students hotspots to use at home. But that's not the real full answer of what we need to do as far as equity in terms of connectivity for our students. We need them to have hardwired internet so they could work at home, because a hotspot with 3 or 4 kids in the house would not meet the needs of everyone. So we've worked to seek a supplier of service, working with human IT to make that happen, because equity for students as far as learning, the online learning is going to be with us forever, whether it be how teachers have changed using the SAMR model away from substitution and making it so we have opportunities for every student to be successful. It's our job to make sure every kid has what they need to be successful, whether it be going to college, going into a career, going to the military service. And if we do that, we're meeting the needs of those students and going to make a difference for them in the long run. Thank you.
And Mary, your 2-minute response to that question.
Thank you. ACSA leadership and ACSA voice should continue to bring equity issues to the forefront by addressing these issues out loud and showing our courage and commitment to eliminating inequities on behalf of each and every California student. The voice of ACSA through social media should continue to create the powerful networking events on specific ways to address inequities through empathy and understanding. Also, by continuing to publish articles that address the issues of race, white privilege, entitlement, and the impact that these have on our students within our school communities, ACSA can provide our membership with the tools to understand and create solution. This realistic voice of ACSA leads us to understand the issues of equity and the ways to confront and positively challenge necessary changes. The Equity Administrators Academy, with its Northern and Southern California groups, brings the issue of race, entitlement, privilege, and stereotypes into our 7 months of workshops to better understand and create solutions to develop schools that truly reach each and every student. ACSA Academy participants are learning from the inside out how to voice these issues and to lead for equity. Through partnerships with our statewide organizations such as CASA, CALSA, PTA, and CSBA, the voice of ACSA is magnified. What can ACSA do to support equity? Voice the inequities and lead with the solutions. Thank you.
Mary, thank you so much, and thank you to all three of our candidates. A reminder for you, we do have a chat feature that is available. If you do have any questions, you go ahead and drop it into our chat, and time permitting, we will go ahead and ask our three candidates for State ACSA Vice President to respond to that question. So again, you can go ahead and put those into the chat. Mary, we'll start with you on this question, followed by Parvin and then Grant. Student and education leader advocacy, incredibly important, and we've seen examples of this time and time again this year. So let's talk about how we can expand that role and continue to push ACSA as the leader in student and educator advocacy.
Thank you. ACSA advocacy has made a significant difference in our success to address the needs of each and every student this year, whether in school funding, safety, curriculum, technology, grading, and school calendar, to name a few. Our ACSA voice has changed history. The positive support for our students during these incredibly challenging times was accomplished through the committed work of our ACSA membership, our ACSA staff, and our ACSA leadership, whose advocacy, as needed, was there to voice. The increase in the frequency of council and committee meetings brought comfort and support for dealing with challenges, in addition to up-to-the-minute information that provided and supported our ability to effectively lead. Building on this momentum, our voice and our leadership must continue to advocate on a regular basis. We can build on the relationships developed during these frequent interactions to lead the advocacy for what is next in education. We must continue to advocate for fair funding and world-class educational systems for all of our school districts, large and small, urban, suburban, and rural. And remember that all means all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And it looks like I've had a little bit of a hiccup in our broadcast today. It is a Monday morning, so that kind of thing happens. It appears that I have skipped Parvin's response to that last question. So I'm going to go ahead and give Parvin the opportunity to respond, and I'll repeat the question. That is, let's discuss equity, because the pandemic has created new or exacerbated existing equity issues. What are some ways ACSA can be a leader in confronting some of the equity issues that are at the forefront in California public education? Parvin, we'll give you 2 minutes to respond to that, and then we'll give you that third question again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I believe that we really need to continue to advocate for legislation that expands opportunities for students in order to implement focused and sustainable services for students, especially those who are victims of unequal and unjust societal conditions. I believe that it's really important to continue our anti-racism work and speak clearly and loudly on behalf of children. And the professional development and sharing of best practices that exist around California is really critical, because there's a lot of great work being done by our colleagues. I believe it's really important to have funding for social emotional support for our students and staff. And last but not least, one of the things that I think is really important is to advocate for the creation of a professional pipeline for teachers of color, especially African American, Indigenous, and Latinx teachers, and support to ensure the retention, to make sure that we retain them and to provide opportunities for executive positions to change course. And last but not least, I know that we heard about technology. It is really important that we continue in that vein and also provide funding for schools to redo their infrastructures so that we can continue to take advantage of the technology available for us all.
Thank you, Parvin, and I appreciate you you helping me out with that one. So let me go ahead and get you right to this third question here, the one that Mary already responded to. Let me go ahead and read that again for you and for Grant's benefit. Student and education leader advocacy are incredibly important, and we've seen examples of that time and time again this year. Let's talk about how we can expand that role and continue to push ACSA as the leader in student and educator advocacy. Parvin, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I truly believe that staying engaged at the state and federal level is critical. You have done that as ACSA. We have been very involved in decisions that have come down in support of our students. And I think it's important to continue that. Roundtables, meeting with staff centered around specific issues are really important. And I think Ledge Action Day was another example of how we can actually do that outreach effectively, inviting leaders around the state, continuing to be in conversations with legislators and their staff so that bills that are introduced actually are based on accurate information and needs, considering all unintended consequences. Building more opportunities for leaders of color to be empowered in decision-making at the state and local level for ACSA is critical. And I believe that legislation that impacts both K-12, TK-12, and higher education to advocate to have more teeth and not left to chance and to conversations versus what needs to happen, that conversation between the two groups. And providing training for region presidents and councils to do the same kind of thing that we did at Ledge Action Day, sort of like local Ledge Action Days locally on specific topics with all stakeholders. These are all just important to keep engaged in advocacy with legislation, as everything that makes that the decisions that are made in Sacramento impact every one of our students locally.
And Grant.
Thank you, Naj. When I look at advocacy, I really look at how are we reaching out to our local elected officials. It should not be just Leg Action Day. Last week was 2 great days of meeting with elected officials and hearing people make presentations on that. But Leg Action Day should not be the only event that we work on. We need to really get out to our local assembly members and state senators in a grassroots effort to let them know what's happening in our schools. You know, we contact them when things are negative, when budgets are going bad and doing those kind of things. But I really think to get them on our side, we need to send them good news that when things are happening in our schools, invite them to events in our district. Don't only reach out when there's a problem. Having them be part of our schools in a positive manner is a great thing. We really want to get our people in ACSA in the room where the decisions are being made, whether that be through our grassroots effort or that through our Leg Action Day or through our action team up in the ACSA in Sacramento. Because we have to really build relationships with those people. They're going to make total decisions on what we're doing. And if all they hear is when we have negative, they're not going to be really on our side as much. We need to become a sounding board for those people where they can know they can reach out to us when they have questions about things dealing with education. Many of those elected officials don't have that background, and getting our voice in their ears is what we really need to do. I think we have to share our stories of what's going on in education, both in our district, in our county, in our state, and nationally to reach out and make those strong pushes to support our programs. I really would like to see us start having ACSA academies on dealing with advocacy, where we could work together to make that happen. I really want to see us grow and advocacy keep improving the way it has been over the past few years. Thank you.
And we do have a question that's come in from Barbara Martinez, our State Vice President for Ledge Action. The question is, one of the milestones outlined on our strategic plan is to continue our grassroots advocacy work. What examples could you provide to your regions that would include local legislators to visit sites, speak or celebrate students, and talk with administrators about celebrations and challenges affecting members and students? How would you build upon this in the VP role? All three of you have been active ACSA members for a number of years, student advocates in your own communities. Again, the question from Barbara, how would you build upon the advocacy work, the grassroots advocacy work, with your role as the vice president and ultimately moving into the president role a few years down the line? Parvin, we will go again in alphabetical order. We'll have you respond first to that question for 2 minutes. Grant, you will have a maximum 2 minutes to respond to that question. And then Mary, you will have 2 minutes to respond to that question. So Parvin, we'll have you start.
So I believe that ACSA staff has done an incredible job connecting us in the right places to the right people. I think we continue that. As a VP, I would work with my colleagues to make sure that not only locally, but statewide, we stay in conversations and make sure that we have our voice heard. I also believe that it's really important for us to always do a great job communicating what we're learning at the state level with our local communities. I think a lot of times our communities and families may not be aware of their power in sharing their voice to support public education. So just a couple of ideas that we have actually implemented in Alameda County, for example. It was very powerful to go to Sacramento with CTA, with our teachers union, CSEA, and families to speak to legislators about what it is that we need. So just kind of collaborating with all parts of the system to make our voices heard is really important. And like Grant said, it's not a one-time deal. It's ongoing every day. This should be a part of our work. And as a vice president, that's a really important piece of the work that we have to be involved in. And
Grant, your response.
Thank you, Naj. Well, I talked about some of these things in my response to the earlier question, but I think the grassroots effort with our local assembly members and our local state senators will go a long way in helping us be able to make those changes and make those things happen for our students. And what we do in our district, in my district, we invite those local officials to come to our different events on our campus, whether it be Student of the Month, whether it be an awards night, whether it be an athletic activity. We reach out to them and try to get them to understand our school and see what we're doing. I've been a real active in our local Chamber of Commerce, and when I was president of the Chamber of Commerce, we would bring in those elected officials to make speeches and share their information. And I think as a vice president of ACSA, I could make those same connections with our local officials to push them forward. But I would want to work also with our every region to make sure they're reaching out to those members of our elected, both senators and assembly members, to get them involved in the schools. We have a great organization that does wonderful things for kids, and they need to know that. So when we do need something, we could reach out to them. That's important. But if we don't build relationships with our elected officials, we're not going to be able to move the mountain, as we call it. Thank you, Naj.
And Mary, your response.
Thank you. As many of you know, as superintendent in Needles Unified School District, we are 2.5 hours across the desert from the closest school district. So our need to develop relationships with our local legislators, with our community city council, and with agencies that can support not only the work that our school district does, but that impacts all of us within this greater desert community is essential to remember on a daily basis. I'm sure I've invited, if not all of you, most of you to come on down to Needles, because being a school district that is that isolated and rural and apart from others, the role of advocacy is essential to our being able to serve our families and therefore serve our students. I also believe that as veteran ACSA members, we have an obligation to train and develop our newer membership. Most recently, our Region 12 Legislative Action Day team met prior to Leg Action Day and had a very thorough and very well thought out training for our newer members that would give those individuals the voice, so that it isn't always those of us that are veterans, but it's all of us together, because all means all. We need to all be speaking, we need to all be confident, and we need to all develop these relationships to really make a difference statewide for our students. As Region President in Region 15, we worked very closely with all of our elected officials, and we made sure not only to have the relationships as an ACSA group, but also to make sure these people were invited to judge our speech contest, to attend our annual banquet, to recognize and celebrate our administrators of the year and our leadership, because advocacy is a two-way street. Our leadership and our members develop relationships, but also their relationships with us is in celebration of the work we do. Thank you.
We'll have Grant respond first to this next question, followed by Mary and then Parvin for a maximum of 2 minutes each per response. This next question, Grant, we'll start with you again. 5 years from now, where's our organization, and how do you think your prospective position in state ACSA leadership can move us in that direction?
Thank you, Naj. Well, 5 years from now, that's a ways down the road, but if we think about it, the ACSA strategic plan is in about its third or fourth year right now, so we'll be doing some updates with that. But I think ACSA is the beacon of light for education in California. Our job is to prepare the future leaders of our schools, our new administrators, and our teachers as they're moving from teaching positions to admin positions. ACSA is leading the charge to increase the funding for special education. Special education is very underfunded, and each district is struggling to make those needs of those kids, and we keep getting more and more special ed students being identified. We need to be a confidant for the state superintendent and the elected officials that serve our communities. As we reach out to those people and we work with them, it's going to really make a huge difference. You know, we need to push internet for all as a goal. But we really need to look at what's happening in the classrooms with our students and our teachers. We need to have all the support possible for them. Over the next 5 years, it's going to be challenging because this pandemic has made a difference not only this year, but it's going to carry on down the road. So we need to continue that support for the social emotional learning and the social emotional part for our staff. We need to keep that in mind as we move forward in this 5-year plan. You know, I would work closely with Wes and his team to make sure we're meeting the needs of our members and our communities. And I think those are the things that we'd be looking at as a 5-year plan down the road. Thank you.
Mary.
Thank you. In 5 years, I envision our ACSA organization with significantly increased membership as educational leaders connect personally to our mission as the driving force for equity, quality, and inspiration to support all of California's students. As a 30-year ACSA member, an active charter, region, and state level member for over 20 years, I have seen the growth in our organization. I have participated in this growth of our professional development programs, mentoring support systems, technology improvements, and financial and operational changes at the region and state levels. I'm excited to further develop our organization through the quality of our membership and our ACSA staff. I actively develop relationships, and I look forward to growing my craft as a leader by working with each and every one of you on behalf of ACSA to identify your needs and to support success for your district. I will continue to unite our ACSA voice through an understanding of the urgency necessary to create educational systems that support all students, all families, all leaders, and all staff. I also envision our continued work with equity and inclusion through our voice and our leadership. My participation as director in our ACSA Equity Administrators Academy has let me witness the impact that this work will have over the additional 5 years. This would significantly begin to change the conversations at schools to include equity and inclusion and better support our California students. As ACSA Vice President, I will continue to work with our ACSA leadership and membership to build significant and cutting-edge opportunities to support equity, inclusion, and opportunities for all students and adults. Thank you.
And Parvin.
I believe that it is really important for board members, community members, and families to have the same level of familiarity and understanding about the impact of ACSA that they currently have when you talk about CTA. I think it's really important for everyone to see the impact that ACSA leadership and staff has had on making things happen in many years, especially this year. So it's really important to highlight those things. I also feel that in the next 5 years, as we look at making sure to be relevant, that we're doing what is supposed to be done for students, all students, to make sure that are all successful and they can reach their aspirations. I believe ACSA academies are critical, and I think we have an opportunity in the next few years to involve board members to actually be involved perhaps in professional development provided through ACSA to teachers and teacher leaders, working with institutes of higher education. I also think it's really important that we talk about funding and ongoing funding, not just for full funding for special education, but full and fair funding for education and looking at the structural issues that exist. So as ACSA members, we can all do our part, but I think it's really important to have a cohesive and clear response to things that occur in our communities and throughout the state of California as we look at what we need to do to support students to be prepared for the kind of work they will be doing. We need to encourage, advocate for student voice at every level that we possibly can as we move forward.
We have a question that's come in from Joseph Williams, and we know that ACSA has more than 17,000 members at all levels of district leadership, from site leaders to district leaders. Joseph Williams asked the question, how can ACSA grow in support of classified leaders? Mary, I will have you be the first to respond for a maximum of 2 minutes.
Thank you, Naj. I think that first and foremost, we need to make sure as leaders that we bring our classified staff into ACSA. I know as region president, we work diligently to connect with our leadership and include those members of classified staff from our school districts throughout our region to be part of our programs, part of our professional development, as well as provide them with individualized PD that would focus on their needs and their work and what they needed to ensure the vision for our California students. I think that our academies for classified staff should be more than focused on their role as a classified member. I think we need to focus on their staff as educators. And again, how can we all work together to better serve our students? As the past chairperson for Region 12 and Region 15 for Women's Leadership Network. We worked diligently alongside with our classified staff and provided programs and mentoring and support for women leaders, regardless of their classification within the school district. I think that it mandates that we think above and beyond classifications and that we look at the needs of our students and the needs within our school district to better serve all. And again, all means all. Thank you.
Parvin.
Yeah, I believe that it's, if nothing else, this past year should have proven to everyone the impact of our classified members. From day one, they have worked hard to make sure everything happens in our school district. But it's not unique. They've always been the very important part of our ability to support students. If you really think about the impact of classified members, whether it be at school sites, with your custodian, your office staff, your paraprofessionals, and how they impact individual students, it becomes really clear that they're all a part of our team, and we need to make sure that we advocate for their support, for their professional development, and make sure that they're at the table for every decision that we make. It is so critical to have hearing sessions with our classified employees, to hear their voices, to make sure that as we make decisions, they are at the table and not just on the menu. It is really important to have professional development that allows them to move within classified and certificated systems and to have growth and be in leadership positions. So I think that this is an area that we can always continue to do better. It's an area that we also need to do a good job communicating with our community as we talk about staff, to make sure that we constantly include how they've impacted students and what we are doing.
And Grant.
Thank you, Naj. When I think about my classified leaders, I think of the backbone of the school district. These are the people that really make things happen in our schools. They're the ones that some kids gravitate to them because they feel comfortable with those people. Our classified leaders continue to grow their experience in our district. One thing that we did in my school district is we have classified members, and we started a classified leaders academy where they would learn how to become higher level administrators, how we could help support them, because many of them come out of the general ranks, like out of the custodial rank or out of the secretarial rank, and they're moving into leadership positions, but they've never really been trained. I think getting them through some ACSA academies will make that improve, but we've taken it upon ourselves to help try to grow our own. And I think we could do that as ACSA, also grow those people that are looking to move up into classified leadership positions and help them through that, because they need to know that, you know, we depend on them for almost everything at the schools to keep us running smoothly. And we need to let them know how they fit into the whole educational program, what their job makes a difference on how kids are going to perform, how they're going to be able to leave our schools and become college students or in a career or in the military service. And if we can continue to improve what we're doing with our classified leaders, it's going to make the whole organization much stronger. I think we have that opportunity now, especially with a lot of the extra money we receive, the CARES money and the ESSERS money, to offer those people opportunities to grow and become outstanding leaders in our district. Thank you.
And folks, we are 40 minutes after the hour, and we've reached the time for closing statements from our three candidates. We want to thank all of you who added questions into our chat. We deeply appreciate that. I know that the candidates appreciate that as well. Again, we've reached the time for closing statements. Each candidate will be given a maximum of 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we're back into the top of our alphabetical order. Parvin Ahmadi will be the first to respond with her closing statements. Grant Bennett will be second, and then Mary McNeil will be third. So with your closing statements, Parvin, you were first.
It's an honor to be here with my two colleagues for whom I have tremendous respect. For the past 32 years, I have worked diligently side by side with teams in medium and large-sized districts to serve the students and families of our communities. It's been my privilege to support our educational leadership community as an instructor for ACSA's Superintendent's Academy for 8 years, on the state's California's Blue Ribbon Commission on Early Childhood Education, representing TK-12 public education, on ACSA's Board of Directors, representing Region 6, and serving on numerous councils, committees, and advisory boards. Extraordinary circumstances, such as what we have experienced this past year, have a tendency to result in becoming purely reactive. As educators, not only have we experienced pervasive anxiety and stress, but our students and families have as well. We have an opportunity to come out of this pandemic with clarity around what it is that we are really trying to grow. The moral and ethical imperative of providing every single student an education of the highest quality requires identifying deep-seated structures in place that have and continue to resist efforts to create a compassionate system where all students, including those historically marginalized, are able to reach their aspirations and have opportunities to be in positions to make decisions and lead. As a fierce advocate for equity, I believe in leaving no stone unturned. Throughout my career, I've always advocated for justice, working to make sure equity and social justice run deep throughout our system at every level and for every decision we make. ACSA's clear and strong voice advocating for millions of students in California for years has been amplified during the pandemic and has been absolutely critical in our ability to reopen our schools and support our students. Should I be fortunate to serve you as the VP for ACSA, I will continue to work with you and ACSA's amazing staff to advance our mission and ensure that we continue to have a seat at the table and are a part of generative conversations locally and statewide. It would be my great honor to serve you and help to create new opportunities for all of California's children. Thank you for your time.
And Grant, your 2-minute closing statement.
Yes, thank you, Naj. Looking back at my career over 30 years in public education, 28 years in one school district, going from a math teacher to eventually now the superintendent. And I look back and I try to really pinpoint areas that made a difference to me. And I always go back to ACSA. ACSA, I've gone through probably 6, 7 different ACSA academies, and each one of those were helping me with a stepping stone onto the next position that I want to achieve. I push that with my administrators to go through ACSA to make a difference. People have asked me, why are you running for ACSA Vice President? Don't you have enough going on? But really, as I get towards the later years of my career, I want to give back to this organization that gave me so much. I would not be in my seat right now if it wasn't for ACSA. I really enjoy being part of the program. I've been 17 years as a treasurer in my local charter, 21 years altogether. I have also been ACSA Region 19 president, on the CTE Council, on the awards committee for ACSA, state ACSA. And I think I have experience that would really lend itself to being part of the upper echelon of the ACSA team. We have so many things happening with this pandemic at the end as we round into next year. And I think that I have the drive to make a positive impact on kids. And that's what all I've wanted to do in the 30 years of education is make a difference for kids. And I think in the Perris High School District, we've done that. I would be proud to represent all 17,000 ACSA members as your vice president. And I ask for your support, and I want to say thank you. And I want to say good luck to both Mary and Parvin as we work through this process. Thank you, Naj.
And Mary, your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. I'm very proud to say that I have witnessed that our ACSA voice and our ACSA leadership has made a significant difference for California students during my 20 years as an ACSA leader. During the past 13 months, we face challenges of safety, funding, and equity, to name a few. It is our leadership and our voice that has been heard. We must capitalize on this momentum. Thank you, ACSA leadership. and ACSA staff for your work and support to ensure that our voice is a significant part of these ongoing conversations. Thank you to all ACSA membership for your work to shape California's future and reach the potential of each and every student through equity, empathy, inclusion, and educational innovation. As a candidate for ACSA VP, I will use my experience and my relationships to further build and develop our organization. I will continue to advocate whenever possible for all of our students and all of our school districts. My experience as chair of the Small School District Committee, Region 15 past president and 9-year Region 15 board officer, ACSA Region 12 and 15 Women's Leadership Network chairs, and Strategic Planning Committee member will ensure my success as ACSA VP. My additional service as a board member for CASA, Palo Verde Community College River Consortium, Rotary, and chair of the Finance Committee for Girl Scouts during a multi-million-dollar merger of the largest council area in California has given me the breadth and experience and knowledge as a board member to fulfill the duties of ACSA VP. The ACSA mission is a part of who I am. I serve students and my colleagues as an accessible leader who listens and acts collaboratively to provide access, opportunities, and solution. Why ACSA? Why not serve and make a positive impact on the future of our California education? It has been an honor today to participate in this meeting alongside leaders like Parvin and Grant. Thank you, ACSA. Thank you to our ACSA leadership, and thank you to our ACSA membership. Leadership matters, your voice matters, and you make a difference. Thank you.
And I want to thank all three of our state vice president candidates for 2021, Parvin Ahmadi, the superintendent from Castro Valley Unified School District, Grant Bennett, the superintendent from Perris Union High School District, and Mary McNeil, the superintendent from Needles Unified School District. To all three of you, thank you so much. Best of luck in this election, and thank you so much for participating today. And folks, thank you so much for being with us today. Just want to give you a couple of notes. Be sure to join ACSA Executive Director Wes Smith tonight at 5:30 for Common Purpose, Uncommon Times. And then be sure to join Edgar and myself on Wednesday, 1 p.m. for the live and interactive ACSA Legislative Lunch Break here on ACSA Facebook and ACSA YouTube. Just for information purposes, the election for state ACSA Vice President comes in May. The Leadership Assembly casts votes for that election, so that comes up later next month. And then, of course, we'll have full coverage for you in EdCal and on our social media as well. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Naj Ali Khan. Have a great rest of the day and great rest of the week.